Greetings and welcome to the Fan Perspective. I'm your host Nathan Lyle, and these are my off-season power rankings. For the WNBA, off-season power rankings are just based purely off of what happened last year and how well the teams performed here in the 2015 season. I'm going to try and predict where they will finish at the end of the 2016 regular season. And originally I was going to wait till the finals were over. Just finished watching Game 4 and it was amazing. But I decided that, it's based more on the regular season than the postseason. Postseason has little bearing on what happens in the regular season, and so it's just, it's just a whole different monster. There's a difference between 32 games and trying to win 2 out of 3 against this one specific team. So I would have done this earlier, but things kept coming up. Anyways, I'm here right now to tell you, based purely on where they finished the 2015 regular season, I'm going to try and guess where these teams will finish at the end of the 2016 season. So we'll start with number 12, which fairly easy to predict, the San Antonio Stars. They had the worst record in the league this year. But good news is, with the new draft lottery rules, they're basically guaranteed that first overall pick next year, as long as they just miss the playoffs. Which, in a Western Conference, that's pretty crowded with talent when it's healthy. I have a hard time believing that the Stars are going to do any better next year than they did this year. So they're going to have the top 3 pick for the next 2 years in a row. So that's good news. They're going to be able to bring in a lot of talented young rookies to keep replenishing this roster. They miss out on Stewie, but there are a lot of great seniors and a lot of juniors that are noteworthy as well. So they're in the middle of a rebuilding process, but they will come back strong at some point in time. Unfortunately, it's going to take a couple of seasons. Then at number 11, I'm putting the Atlanta Dream. And for me, if you would be justified being mad about this, but here's the thing. I have no idea what was wrong with them. If you look at my channel, some of my earlier videos at the beginning of the 2015 season, I figured the Dream would finish as one of the top teams in the league, not just in the Eastern Conference, but one of the best in the league. They said they have plenty of talent on their roster, but somehow, for some reason, they just fell off this year, and I'm not sure what's wrong with them or how they can fix it. So for now, I'm just putting them at the bottom, and it's partly because I'm not sure how they're going to bounce back from last year, but also because even if they do play better than they did this year, the Eastern Conference has proved that there are a lot of formidable opponents out there. And so it's going to be a hard-fought battle all season long. And now we're moving on to number 10, where I placed the Seattle Storm. And they won the Stewie series. And I think the rebuilding effort isn't going to take too long. But once again, you're in a Western Conference that's already crowded with talent. And even though you've got a great core of players to build around, they are still very young, and it could still take a little bit of time to get used to it. I think they could possibly even be on the edge of the playoff battles. If injuries become a major storyline in the Western Conference again, they could be right in the mix again. They still got Sue Bird, who's a good stabilizing veteran presence, as well as Langhorne, and they've got a good influx of young players this year with Lloyd, Mosqueda Lewis, Takashi, now adding Stewie and whoever else they bring in next season as well. They've got a great young core of players, and their future looks really bright. But next season is probably going to be another hard one to sit through for the Storm fans. But think about it, because immediately after that, it's going to get so much better. And then at number 9, for 9, 8, and 7, they're all Eastern Conference teams. And this one was actually very difficult. Number 9 I'm starting with the Connecticut Sun. Originally, I had them placed in the playoffs. But their standing has been lowered because of the news that Ann Donovan is stepping down as the head coach. And I know she hasn't had a stellar record in Connecticut, losing season every year that she's been coaching there. But she's still a very respectable head coach. And, I think the team was better with her on the roster. And I don't know how they're going to recover without her. It depends on who they hire. There are a lot of good candidates out here. So, depending on who ends up taking over, I mean, they could easily go right back up in the rankings because this is a team that has a lot of talent capable of being in the playoffs. Kelsey Bones, she went to college here in Texas, my home state, so I've seen her play since she was in college, and this is a girl who has a lot of talent. I mean, she's showing some Shaq-like dominance in the paint this season. And, I knew she had a high ceiling and she seems to have found a good fit in Connecticut. She's definitely showing that she has the ability to dominate that post. And so if you look at this Sun team, they've got a talented roster full of amazing young players with a lot of skill. And if they are fully healthy, if they've got Jasmine and Alyssa Thomas, Chene, Kelsey Bone, Alex Bentley, if they've got their full complement of players, they've got a good core to build around, and they can only get better as they continue to age. And this is a team that can easily be competing for the playoffs. They were in the race this year, but injuries just kind of they started losing. It happens sometimes. And then at 8 and 7, you're kind of gonna be upset about me for this, but I actually put Indiana at number 8, which part of the reason I was worried about about the playoffs is because anything can happen once you get there, but you have to get there first, and then the game changes. It definitely slows down a little bit, and you get the big stars getting more minutes, not going as deep into that bench rotation, and all this other stuff. But here's the thing, it's Tamika Catchings, her final season in the league, and already you've seen this year, during the regular season at least, you saw more of a transition away from her as the team went from carrying her to her just being a reliable veteran and a stabling presence, but not necessarily being carried by her. They have a deep bench and they went to it often, but injuries have always been an issue for them, and you have to wonder, they've got some good players like Kaiser, Zellish, January, but can they carry the team? Because Tamika, she's always been the one that you can rely on in the clutch. So you have to wonder, when she's gone, are they going to enter a rebuilding period, or will they be able to carry on without her? I have my doubts. I think they're definitely in the fight for it, but for me, with them and the Mystics, it was a coin flip to decide who was in 8th place. And really, the Fever, they kind of got a little bit lucky. Washington, the Mystics, they fell off at the end. You had Atlanta, for some reason, they had a surprisingly bad season. And then you had the Connecticut Sun. They played very well at the beginning of the year, and they slumped off towards the end. I mean, the Fever could have easily finished in 5th or possibly even 6th place if a few things had changed throughout the year. I mean, that's just what I saw. The Fever they're still a good team capable of winning, but will they actually be able to get those wins once they are out there on the floor? Because in a 32-game regular season, a lot of things can happen. And it's just, I think they can win the close games, but are they going to be able to score consistently? Are they going to be able to play that strong, consistent defense all season long against all of the best elite teams in the league? I just don't feel as comfortable with them as I did in years past. And then you've also got the Washington Mystics, who, like I said, it was basically a coin flip between them and the Fever for that 8th spot, and now so the Mystics, they won the coin toss, so they get 7th. And it's mostly just because Tebow, as long as he's in charge, it's hard for me to imagine a team that he coaches not making the playoffs, because it seems to happen almost every year. I mean, there have been times when it didn't happen, but that's the exception, not the rule. And so for me, it's just, Mike Tebow coached teams, that's almost an automatic playoff bid. They've got a great core of young players who should continue to get better. You've seen the improvements from year to year with Misa Min and Dolson, Lotta, Hartley, and all these others. Hopefully they'll continue to get better. And you saw them a lot at the end of the year. She kept getting more minutes and playing well with her time on the floor. They've got a great core of young players that they can continue to build around, and I just expect them to continually just keep adding on and just keep slowly improving little by little every single season. And then we go on to number 6, which, if you weren't already upset, this is gonna make you upset. because I've got the two teams that are in the WNBA finals right now aren't even ranked in my top 5. Because number 6, I've got the Minnesota Lynx, and like they've been very impressive in the playoffs, and it's kind of changing my opinion just a little bit. They do have a lot of strong players on their roster, but looking especially at the second half of the season, Minnesota just has not looked as scary. They have not dominated like they did in years past. And if you look at it, this season you had the injury to Skylar Diggins for the Shock. You had Candace Parker sitting out the first half of the season. You had Terrasian Taylor sitting out the entire season for the Mercury. I mean, I think the competition is going to get much tougher next season with Whalen and Augustus, suffering through injury woes and having to deal with that. And I think it's going to be, I think it might be difficult for the Lynx to maintain their presence at the top of the league. I don't think they're necessarily the class of the conference anymore. Still a strong contender. I think they still look like a 20-win team to me. They just don't scare me as much as they used to. And then we move on to the top 5, which starting with the Phoenix Mercury, and this is all under the assumption that Taurasi and Taylor, they come back next year and they play as well as they did in 2014, and presumably Griner in her 3rd year, assuming that she can stay healthy and that her numbers continue to improve, because she's been looking more and more amazing every year so far of her career. So, I mean, I think they're definitely in contention for that top spot. Easily one of the best teams in the league. There are still some concerns about their depth. Like when they have their full lineup, they have possibly the best starting 5 in the entire league. But I can name like 2 or 3 people on their bench, and for me, I think that's gonna hurt them throughout the year. And then we move on to number 4, the Los Angeles Sparks, and looking at the first half of the season, you'd think I was crazy. But looking at the second half of the season, they were one of the better teams in the league. Candace Parker looking like an MVP candidate. Nneka, Jantel. They've got, Beard. This year, they've got Brian Agler as the head coach. And this year, they only struggled because they had the majority of their starters just missing so much time. Parker missed the first 16 games. Beard, I think she only played 5 games. Tolliver missed time. Nneka missed time. Jantel's the only one who started the entire season. So, with their full healthy complement of players back, I think there's no reason why this team wouldn't be competing for one of the top spots. With Candace Parker healthy all year, with her full supporting cast around her, this team looks very, very scary. And then you've got number 3, who I chose, the Chicago Sky. They did finish in 2nd place in the East. Could have easily gotten to 1st place. I think they still have some holes in their team, but they've got a lot of great talented players. Of course, the MVP in Delle Donne, Quigley, consecutive 6 Woman of the Year awards. Vandersloot, the league leader in assists. Pondexter, and D'Souza. The been there, done that veterans. They've got some great young talent coming off the bench. Cheyenne Parker, she looked great in spurts, and I can't wait to see how she continues to develop. There's a lot of strong, talented players on this roster, and the only reason I have them at number 3 is because you got New York. It just looks amazing, and the Tulsa Shock as well, who actually next year, I suppose they're going to be the Dallas Shock. And they're the number 2 team on my list. I mean, they started the season 8-1 before Skylar got hurt, and they were playing without Glory Johnson the whole time. So I think just that alone, just having Skylar and Glory back, and assuming that they stay healthy, especially Odyssey Sims continues to develop, Courtney Paris continues to have a big impact, Raquana Williams, Kiesel had a great break year. I mean, I think they've got too much talent on this roster to not be a great team. They were the best team in this league before Skylar got hurt. She was having an MVP campaign. I expect them to come right back and just pick up where they left off. And I think I'm very confident that with this team 100% healthy, they are playoff bound. And then number 1, you've got the New York Liberty, because I mean, damn. This year they showed a lot of depth. They showed good, solid defense. They've got a lot of players who can put up points from a lot of different spots on the floor. and they've got a great head coach, very respectable head coach in Bill Laimbeer, who's won titles before with the Shock, and it looks like he's building a dynasty there in New York. And this is a team that is to be feared. You know, this is a team that just, I think, as long as they keep this main core together, I mean, they've got a good 3 to 5 years of success at the top of the league. They're going to be in the top half for the next 3 to 5 years, guaranteed. And so that's it for this. Those are my off-season power rankings, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I can almost guarantee someone's going to disagree with me. But who cares? These are my opinions, so deal with it. So yeah, finals are the last game of the finals being played on Tuesday, so hopefully I'll be able to put the finals recap up Wednesday morning. Hopefully, if things go well, which they rarely do, but yeah, so I'm going to put that up, and then this channel is going to go relatively dark. I have no plans to cover the NFL season. I might cover the NBA season, depending on how things develop in my personal life, but as of right now, that's just a no. It's just, I've got stuff going on. I'm trying to get a lot of different things sorted out. So for right now, this is the last video that I'm planning to make in 2015. So until I do return, whenever that might be, I will return with some WNBA things at the very latest in, around April, May, whenever the draft is held. Do some of my my preseason power rankings and stuff. And, of course, when the new season begins, recording with all new episodes of WNBA Weekly. And this time, next year, all of those videos will be edited, so you won't have to hear me stuttering and mumbling like I am right now. So that's definitely a good thing. So yeah, until the next time that you see my face on camera, my name is Nathan Lyle. This is my WNBA coverage. I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a really fun season to watch. I cannot wait to come back next year. Thank you for all of your support, and I hope you have a great week.